Good morning. I hope you're doing good, being slowly but surely released from the current lockdown environment. As we know that most companies and organizations are returning back to office, we see quite a lot of activity picking up again, which is, I think, good in any case. Not always that great for our webinars because we see that less participants are actively contributing and participating, but that's quite understandable, and not to worry because these webinars are being recorded. So my name is Ulrich Saldenstacht. I'm the managing director of an association called LSEC, and within that organization we have the activities of 3if. And 3if is basically an activity that we started less than a decade ago in the idea about supporting manufacturing companies in their route to digital transformation. So 3if is basically standing for Industrial IoT in Flanders, but also Industry 4.0 in Flanders. From this activity, we have quite a number of participations and collaborations on an international level. And I'm happy that today we can share some of our own activities and experiences together also with some of the activities being done in the Netherlands by smart maintenance activities under the brand of Worldclassmaintenance. Before I introduce Paul van Kempen, let me maybe give you first a couple of ideas about what we do within 3if, and then it might also give you a better perspective about the activities that we are planning for. So within 3if, we provide advisory, we provide support, and we provide also field lab activities, which we could also be considering as living labs, because we do the installations on site. 3if is an activity which is supported by the Flemish government already for the last 6 years. And through this, we have been able to support more than 400 companies in Flanders in making their first steps or secondary steps towards Industry 4.0 and digital transformation. There's a number of other field labs in Flanders as well. You can find some of them online, and we'll be inviting some of the field labs activities in some of the upcoming webinars in the next coming weeks. We also participate in some European activities, and with 3if and LSEC, we contribute, for instance, to a project called Connected Factories. Without going too much into detail, it just gives you a bit of the perspective on how we see from a European level on Industry 4.0 perspective, if you like, across different member states, the idea about how factories are slowly but surely migrating towards more digital. And we call those trajectories pathways. And so in the next couple of slides, I'll be giving you some headlines on what those pathways would be looking like. We also operate what we called cross-cutting factors, and cross-cutting factors are things like cybersecurity, value propositions, business models, and so forth. One of those pathways is called collaborative productive service factories. So where we are trying to understand what the impact is for production companies, manufacturing companies on digitizing or digital servitization of their products and technologies, and how they would need to integrate this and where specifically. So there we can see the impact of digital platforms in the operations, but also in the way that they need to manage and support the products and services afterwards. Another one is called autonomous smart factories. Autonomous smart factories is really of high interest and importance to us, because there we see how the impact of robotics, for instance, of things like also condition-based maintenance, one of the topics of today, are impacting the factories, and where we can see basically how connectivity needs to drive those factories, but also the digital platforms behind it. And the more important component there as well is how to integrate all of these components from the perspective of big data labs and big data lakes, and then working from big data with IoT sensors and connecting them to existing environments. So from our field lab experience, what we do is we bring some of the IoT sensors and equipment that we have into the factories, and we deploy them together with a number of partners. And this results in some expertise and experiences that we can then further monetize towards supporting the companies. And after half a day of installation, the companies then immediately can see what the impact is for them and how they can further explore that, that installation. The first half a day is for free, and then afterwards they can work with those providers to see how they can work out on a specific commercial activity. And with the Factory Sense platform, we've taken this to a next level, and we've developed actually a joint venture where we bring together the technologies and the installation work in a platform which is basically packed as a product in a service. And for less than 700 euros, there's a whole kit of those types of instruments that can be installed mainly with SMEs who are trying to understand what, in this case, digital factories can actually mean. So a couple of those components listed out here, but that's not to go further into detail here. Another project that we are working on is called Trinity. It's an European digital innovation hub, where we, as Flemish 3if, are one of the local digital innovation hubs. And within 3if, we support companies in their developments. And recently, we have selected nearly 20 companies which will be supported with a fund, basically 300,000 euros, up to 300,000 euros, to help them with their innovation activities. From 3if, we also work together with LSEC, and that's also the reason why you see the logo of LSEC somewhere on top and downstairs. And so yesterday, for instance, we had a webinar on how to identify your assets within your network, which is basically one of the critical components of cybersecurity. Also yesterday, we had a discussion about how to do network detection and response, also very important for industrial cybersecurity. Today, we'll be focusing more on the activities of world-class maintenance. And thanks to our partner from the Netherlands, in this case, thanks to Paul. Good morning, Paul. Hope you're doing well. We need to unmute you somehow. I think that's my fault because I think I put you on.
Yeah. Yes. Good morning, Ulrich. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. I'm already getting used to working from the home office, like most of you do, I think. But luckily, we can do a lot of work remotely.
So how is the industry in the Netherlands picking up these days? Is it, are you moving ahead quite strongly, like you've been also opening up the restaurants and the bars already a couple of weeks ago? So I think that the Netherlands is back up and running.
It's now slowly picking up, indeed. Of course, some sectors were hurt quite badly, travel, restaurants, etc. Some parts of the industry just continued. So there is a mix of effects, I would say, but we're now slowly picking up with a 1.5 meter distance. We have to keep, of course, but I think the people are quite pleased that they can get out now since 2 weeks. Yeah.
Great. And how is that also impacting the industry, so the manufacturing? Do you see also on that level there's an increase in productivity again?
I think it's increasing now indeed. So some sectors just continued, like the food sector, of course, continued to work. Also from a maintenance perspective, our topic of today. But then again, other companies decided to try to keep out as much people as possible for safety reasons. But it's slowly picking up. Also because we developed quite some procedures in the Netherlands that make it safe to start working. And certainly when you talk about maintenance, in most cases you also talk about safety. Maintenance really affects safety. So therefore, it's vital that we have these procedures so that we continue keeping our assets healthy.
So we met a couple of years ago already, actually a couple of times, while trying to link the Flemish Industry 4.0 activities to some things that are happening in the Netherlands. There's quite some activities that we even do together with the Netherlands in terms of smart factories. But I was always very intrigued by the activities that you have been building within World-Class Maintenance already for some years. And the invitation has been outstanding also. Unfortunately, today we had planned to organize another 3if conference, the annual international 3if conference, but we'll have to defer that further along. So I'm happy that you could make it and to maybe share some of activities that you're doing with World-Class Maintenance and with Campione specifically. So please indulge us with your views and how you see the world of maintenance moving along. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ulrich. Okay, so hopefully you all see this first sheet of mine.
Yeah, you can see the screen.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, my name is Paul van Kempen, Operational Director of World-Class Maintenance in the Netherlands. And indeed, let's see if it's freezing. With this button it works. So I made a little agenda for today. I would like to introduce, of course, the World-Class Maintenance organization, talk a little bit about our innovation infrastructure, and I recognize some of the points, Ulrich, you also showed in your sheets, so we are addressing, I think, the same important issues. That's good to know. And then, of course, you already mentioned our field lab Campione, which has an important role in the innovation infrastructure we have. And actually, Field Lab Campione was the first, what we call in the Netherlands, smart industry project. So internationally, I think most common word is Industry 4.0, and we call it smart industry in the Netherlands. That's the same. And we'll talk about, well, the current project, how it's running today, the lessons learned since we started already in December 2015 with this project, and also some follow-up initiatives we initiated. Okay, first about World-Class Maintenance. World-Class Maintenance is the branch organization for professional maintenance in the Netherlands of FME, which is the branch organization for the technology sector, I would say. And we also have a foundation in which we run our open innovation projects. I'll come back to that later. Our goal is, in our name, to make our partners world champions in maintenance. So we're active in the domains of maintenance, or what you also see in the sector as asset management or life cycle management. And we do that in different sectors, varying from, on the top here, aerospace up till process industry, the topic of Campione, infrastructure. So many sectors. And what is quite nice is that we can stimulate some knowledge transfer from one sector to the other. That is quite interesting for most of our members. In the end, we would like to stimulate, of course, the competitiveness of our partners, but at the same time, I think if you do it correctly, you also work then on safety and sustainability. And I think nowadays I should add a new bullet there, because the human capital agenda, I'll also address that later, is increasingly important. We really have lack of qualified personnel, and Campione, for example, is all about big data and sensors. And I think we started that in 2015 to increase, to work on the competitiveness. But nowadays people want to work remotely, want to use VR, AR, because we simply don't have the people that we can send out in the field to do the maintenance. So that's a big driver now for a lot of innovation projects. Also important, maintenance as such is not a goal. In the end, we want to make a contribution. What is here on the right side is world-class assets. That, of course, is the main goal. Yeah, I already mentioned the open innovation projects. So we have a separate foundation for that. So we strongly believe that we can achieve this goal by working together in open innovation projects. I already mentioned that we try to do that cross-sectoral, so try to transfer knowledge from one sector to the other. And as a result of the structure of our projects, we typically have large and smaller companies involved, knowledge institutes, schools involved, and in some cases also the government. And our activities are, well, mainly concentrated around field labs and projects that I will highlight today. Of course, from these field labs, we generate a lot of knowledge, and that is, our partners generate a lot of knowledge. And of course, we try to disseminate that as good as possible. Through our branch organization, we provide a lot of lobby and politics activities. As an example, we made a report about the infrastructure sector, and we indicated to our minister that by applying smart maintenance, also used in Campione, we can save a lot of money and simultaneously work on the safety of a lot of public infrastructure projects. And of course, last but not least, we have, of course, a strong network of our members and also partners, including, of course, Ulrich in Flanders. So yes, we are a network, and we have all kinds of memberships. This is in Dutch, but I will only highlight the, let's say, the main differences, because there are, of course, quite some differences between the various memberships you can take. But from the bronze one, you can be member of the association, the branch organization. And as from the silver membership, you can participate in projects up to the platinum membership. And then you can take part in our project board, which is very important for us, because with the project board, we define the innovation strategy that seems to be right for the maintenance sector. Okay, so that's about short introduction about the world-class maintenance. And then I'll come to the, well, innovation infrastructure that we built since the, well, the formal start of world-class maintenance in 2015, but it was already initiated years before that, more than 5 years before that, and then it was called the Dutch Institute World-Class Maintenance. And even years before, we had the initiative called in the Netherlands Maintenance Valley. I will not describe the whole history, but there is quite a track record of world-class maintenance. But since 2015, we have this branch organization and foundation for the open innovation projects. And when you look at the, I would say, innovation line here on the top, we have quite some projects. And yes, we are involved in quite a lot of R&D projects, where universities are involved, knowledge institutes, and where we are working on lower TRL level innovations. So less mature innovations. So a lot of knowledge is generated there. And Campione, which I'll discuss today, is a field lab project, which is more or less well, coming after these R&D projects. When you have a good idea, when you have interesting knowledge or some start of innovation, and you want to accelerate that towards interesting applications or business cases, then field labs are, I would say, the place to be, because in these field labs we do really field tests, either in a laboratory or actually in pilot environments in the industry, to accelerate these innovations. And then after that, we have well, just started a new project called Samen. And of course, there are also pilots there in what Ulrich also mentioned, living labs, so pilot environments in the industry. But this project is more or less focusing on, I would say, all non-technical issues that are vital to scale up and commercialize innovations, for example, coming from field labs. And then we're talking about what are then the new business models, what are the new contracts that come with these innovations, and what is the knowledge required for the people that have to work with these innovations, that kind of aspects. But really important in the end to come from, let's say, the basic idea here up till the business. In this line here, you see skills, and I think that's becoming increasingly important. I already mentioned it in the introduction. Human capital is crucial, because we really have lack of technical and qualified personnel. So we already have for many years, also in the predecessors for Worldclassmaintenance, educational projects, because we have quite some members that are schools at all types of level, from intermediate education up till the universities. Also for a couple of years, we have a very successful summer school every year, a week, somewhere end of August, where young professionals are trained by all Dutch professors that have something with to do with maintenance. Very interesting, and it's also coupled to a case. So in the past of ASML, for example, our Navy, Rijkswaterstaat. So that's a very successful event. And since we realized that this human capital line is quite important, generating from the Campione project, we have set up also an initiative called Skills Lab, where we try to develop the maintenance curriculum together with the schools and the companies that work in Campione. And last initiative that we added to this line is Young World-Class Maintenance, since we want to motivate to keep the youngsters involved in our projects, and also to offer them a very interesting training program. So the summer school is a 1-week initiative, and Young World-Class Maintenance is a more yearly program for the young professionals of our members. But as you see, these field labs are put here in the middle, so they are quite important. And that has to do with this, rather complex sheet, it looks like, maybe, but shortly, what you recognize are the technology readiness levels. I think nowadays most people are familiar with that. I have an aerospace background. It's coming from the space business, basically saying that if it's you still need some fundamental research, we are really working at this level. And once you are space qualified and ready to fly, you're actually at this level. And what we see in the Netherlands, and maybe it's true in other European countries as well, is that I would say at the lower TRL levels, we have quite some institutes there that have superior knowledge, I would say. We have a lot of programs, a lot of funding, so that's well organized at this side. Also on this side, once an innovation is mature and there is a kind of a business case demonstrated, you see that companies are willing to invest. So also on this side, it's quite well organized and running well. But of course, in between, we have this famous valley of death, how to come from a good idea to this business case. And that's where a lot of projects fail and end up, what we typically call in a report, and ending up on a bureau of someone. And exactly this valley of death is addressed by our field labs, which I will show later on. So how to accelerate the basic idea into an application and business case. We do that on a lot of topics, and I will also only address today, of course, condition-based and risk-based maintenance, also the topic of a lot of field labs, I would say. But all these topics came from a Delphi study we performed. You can find it for free on our website, where we interviewed a lot of experts in the field, asking what kind of issues we should address in our programs. And these are the topics that were mentioned. I think we will refresh the study probably next year or so, I think. And what you can see, well, if this would have been larger, is that condition and risk-based maintenance is kind of a central topic in this innovation agenda. And derived from there, you find other, somewhat hard topics that are here in gray, but also some soft topics like culture are mentioned in this document. But the starting point for a lot of field lab initiatives is this condition-based maintenance. And that was also the trigger for Campione. You see here our initial goal towards zero downtime, or maybe the other way around, is 100% predictive maintenance. And of course, you can argue whether 100% predictive maintenance is really something you want to achieve. And for some part, I agree, because in some cases, even corrective maintenance could be a fine solution, I would say. But on the other hand, we see that achieving 100% predictive maintenance is getting really achievable and cheaper every day, I would say, because all these developments in Industry 4.0. And of course, we use this rather radical goal, I would say, for Campione on purpose, because it also triggers a lot of companies. If you have this radical goal, a lot of companies realize that they cannot achieve this alone, that they have to cooperate, and that's why they want to join our open innovation initiatives like the Campione project. Well, Campione, of course, it sounds very nice. It's also used in sport terms quite a lot, but it actually is an abbreviation, stands for condition-based maintenance for the process industry open network environment. So that says a lot. It's about condition-based maintenance, or 100% predictive maintenance, I would say, focusing on the process industry initially, and indeed it's again an open innovation project. And well, we started that in 2015, and up till now, during a lot of meetings, I regularly checked what the opinion was about our national soccer team. And well, I already see someone from Belgium laughing. And of course, the opinion was quite bad for a long time. And even there was a quote here, I think it was somewhere in 2015, that 17, that the Dutch team was really the worst in 30 years. So there was really a bad opinion about that. But something happened in 2017, and when I asked the same question, suddenly people were very enthusiastic. And that had a specific reason, because our ladies team became European champion. And later on we had some other developments, and then of course suddenly the whole opinion changed, and it was suddenly we had a very good team. What this shows is that depending on the type of data you take and the filtering you apply, you come to some conclusions. And that's already, well, maybe a kind of a warning, an alert with respect to using big data, which is also the topic of Campione. Well, some pictures here to illustrate what was looking like. We had a start. Oh yeah, it was October 2015. Already said we were the first, well, smart industry field lab in the Netherlands. As a result, our Minister of Economic Affairs, Henk Kamp at the time, here standing here, together with our chairman Lex Besseling, Ineke Desentier, president of FME. He would like to open this project himself, and it was a very nice meeting. And we actually started without having a real test facility at the time. That was opened, well, somewhat more than a year later, in the Gate 2 building in Rijen, which is across the airbase Gils Rijen in the south of the Netherlands. Therefore, also I would say the Minister of Economic Affairs of the province of Brabant at the time, Bert Pauli there, again, Ineke Desentier, and someone from the municipality of Gils Rijen, of Dolfs. Together we opened the field lab there. The Campione and other field labs are all about smart maintenance. And as I said, we typically connect rather radical goals to this field labs. And for Campione, it's 100% predictive maintenance. For others, like in the offshore wind sector, we also have one like zero on-site maintenance. So a lot of attention for robotics, for example. But the smart maintenance, predictive maintenance, is very important for a lot of sectors we are working in. And when we look at the process industry, focus for Campione, we look at these type of assets. And these assets are old and aging, which is an international topic, I think, for the process industry, but also in infrastructure. We have the same. Assets are typically 40, 50, 60 years old, or maybe even older. And the message is that we have to continue working with these assets. And at the same time, you have a lot of competition in countries with low labor rates or that are sitting on top of oil. And there are a lot of new plants. So we have to compete with that world, with old assets. And the only way to do that is by smart maintenance. And when you look at the traditional way of maintenance, we have the mix of corrective and preventive maintenance. Both ways are too expensive. You have repair costs, you have shutdowns, which are very expensive. And on the other side, if you have preventive maintenance, you're not using the complete lifetime of the components you have in your production plant. So smart maintenance is very important. And then you come into the world of condition-based maintenance, which is also nothing new. It's also a concept of 40, 50 years old, but it's getting a boost because of smart industry, or what is called in Europe Industry 4.0. It's getting a boost because sensors are getting smaller, cheaper, more autonomous. We have IoT specialists, big data specialists, and I would say the mix of this new world of the big data and the old concept of condition-based maintenance, that is really what we have inside the field at Campione, and giving really a boost to a condition-based maintenance. Well, this is again the radical goal I explained. So the other way around is 100% predictive maintenance. And of course, what we would like to do there is use all types of smart industry techniques and methodology, get knowledge and experience about it, and disseminate that through our members. And of course, it was initiated by the fact that we wanted to stimulate the economy. But once you do it right, working on predictive maintenance, you also work on sustainability and safety. So that's a win-win-win situation, I would say. This is deliberately an old sheet. Of course, it shows that data is exploding, also compared to voice. This is a very old sheet, so it would be nice because it's an old prediction to see if they're right, but I think it is. And also these type of quotes say that data is really exploding. And also one I remembered is that someone of a big consulting company said that in 2016, I think, was the first year that in that year alone, more data was captured than in the 4,000 years before. And I can imagine something about the first years of these 4,000, but I guess that in 2015 already a lot of data was captured. But it really shows that it's exploding. What is even more relevant for Campione was the source, which is Ericsson. And Campione, of course, is an open innovation project for the process industry. And I think years ago, Ericsson would never have been a project member in such a project. And now, because of the data getting more and more important, suddenly they have become a very important project partner because of the data and IoT expertise. So new players are getting into the field of maintenance. And that, of course, is nice of an open innovation environment like Campione. When you look at the innovations that can accelerate predictive maintenance, these innovations are typically with SMEs, so with smaller companies, or new divisions of bigger companies like Ericsson. And they typically don't have entrance to a big chemical plant to develop their innovations and to demonstrate that. And to be honest, I had a lot of conversations with plant owners, for example, at the Camelot site in the south of the Netherlands. And they literally said to me, Paul, it's a very nice idea, Campione, condition-based maintenance, but please start at the neighbor, was really sad. And if it works at my neighbor, I would be interested and also join your project. So we decided to make that neighbor, and what you see here on the sheet is our own test facilities at Gate 2 in Rijen. So our own small process plant, and that is open for everyone that wants to develop an innovation, for example, a sensor and a big data algorithm. And we have an agreement with lots of industries that if an innovation reaches a certain level of maturity, that we can give a demonstration here at this point, that they can take it over and start pilots within their own environment called living labs, as Ulrich also showed in the sheets before. And I think the combination of this central field lab with the living labs all around the Netherlands, we really have an infrastructure to accelerate these innovations up to applications and business cases. It's quite a big project. So it started in 2015, end of 2015, with a 12 million project volume. And by now we have some 36 partners and many more other companies, well, that use the services of the field lab. When opening the field lab, Campione, the minister already asked us to think about other field labs we could start up. So we decided to start up similar field labs initiatives, but then in other sectors. I will mention some, so like Camino, that also got a smart industry label from our government, which is really focusing on the infrastructure sector, so bridges, sluices, networks, etc. We have Zephyros, which is growing quite fast, which is about offshore wind parks, which are getting bigger and farther from the coast. So smart maintenance is really important there. I already mentioned the project Samen, which is a specific one, but then focusing on non-technical issues. Fortissimo for the agriculture and food industry, for example. And these two I will address later on. And we have some, well, much more other projects also in the regions, for example, as mentioned here. And in total, I think there are about 21 projects running today. Well, the status of the current projects, so we have a lot of living labs that are live now, used as test environments. This one I will mention later on, because we have a specific work package within Campione showing this picture, which is about virtual and more augmented reality. A nice result that I can also show later on is the Asset Health Center that was set up by Cytec Services at Gemmelot. We also did a lot of pilots on data security. Not in the beginning, I must say. That was a surprise to me, because I thought, well, maybe that's the first topic people want to pick up. But no, it started really with this predictive maintenance. And now we are in the phase that innovations are scaling up. And then, of course, data security becomes an issue. So now we have a lot of activities there. We had many workshops, delegations, a lot of visitors coming to the field lab. But the whole initiative has grown into a platform for asset owners where they can share their knowledge. And we have a lot of interaction between these living labs that I explained and the field lab. And since we try to address a cross-sectoral knowledge transfer, for example, we have a nice link with Camino for the infrastructure sector, where, for example, Cytec, working for the process industry, is now also working for municipalities. Some results, well, I already mentioned Cytec, but that was one of the larger players in Campione. So they set up an asset health center, which is a control room, which is, of course, known for the process industry, but then typically for operations. This one was dedicated for maintenance. And Cytec started with pilots, and I think they did it in a smart way. They started small at places in the plant where they had quite some data about euros, so where they had some financial losses. So there would be a kind of business case in the end, and also where they had some basic data already in place. And that resulted in quite a lot of successful small pilots with a business case. And with these business cases, the support from the whole organization grew for this Campione initiative. And then the pilots grew, scaled up, etc. And now they are very successful partners. I think it even had an effect on their own corporate identity. As you see here, there's a more recent sheet with a new logo, the new Asset Health Center they have set up. And they are now also experimenting with much more smart industry type of innovations, from 3D printing, or LED as a service, smart sensors, etc. So a rather big scope of smart maintenance related innovations are now tested and implemented at the same time at the Camelot site. Another one which I also like to show is a cooperation of Fujifilm, of course a big Japanese company, but with a nice plant in Tilburg, the Netherlands, not too far from Rijn, where we are with our central field lab, and IMS, which is a startup company on digitized maintenance. The nice message here is, I think that goes for many companies, is that you can really start with smart maintenance by looking at your existing data. In the case of Fujifilm, we looked at, well, the picture is quite small, but it was a production plant for offshore, printing plates, offset plates, they are called. It starts with a big roll of aluminium plates in a factory that goes over 1600 like these rollers. And then it gets all kind of mechanical, chemical processing. And then at the end it's cut and you have an offset plate. These rollers, well, have a metal roller and with some rubber on it. And that is degenerating and resulting in the end in poor quality plates. And for Fuji in the past, the only thing to do was to stop the production line, to visually really inspect these type of rollers, and if necessary to replace. Well, it was a very costly operation, certainly because the production was, of course, had to be stopped for that. And at some point of time, we just walked through the production facilities, saw someone looking at all types of figures, a lot of data, and it was coming from the SCADA systems from the production line. And well, in the end, we gave that to specialists, and now specialists can really predict, based on the SCADA data from the production, when these rollers have to be replaced or repaired. And of course, it was a big, challenging technical exercise, but I think the main breakthrough here was to break down the wall between the division production and the division of maintenance, so that data was shared between production and maintenance. So there was good news. Fuji already had the data, they already paid for it, but didn't use it for maintenance purposes. And now they have a quite nice operational system that results in nice business cases. Also, what I would like to stress is the relevance of the involvement of schools. I already mentioned the human capital line, so it's very important that besides all these innovations, we also have people that can work with the innovations. So therefore, we included the schools in our project quite soon. So it's ROC Tilburg for intermediate kind of level education, and Advanced Hogeschool is a University of Applied Sciences, what it's called internationally. And they picked up the whole project quite well. Actually, they designed, co-designed and co-produced the whole test facility in Rijn, and they are facilitating a lot of experiments. And this is just an example, but what they would like to do here is make a connection with the process automation of ABB, in this case, also one of our members, and connect that to a virtual world, so that in the virtual world we can do, I would say, unsafe experiments with chemicals, high temperatures and pressures, and then connect it back again to our physical test plant, where of course we don't want to have heavy chemicals, high pressures and temperatures, because that results in unsafe conditions, which prevents people to really do a lot of experiments. But the schools have been very important for us. Already mentioned, we have a specific work package on virtual and augmented reality. In fact, we have what's called mixed reality lab, the DAF lab, because we also got a fund from the DAF Foundation at the Tilburg University. Professor Max Lauwersen is leading their research, and in the end, they want to advise companies on what works and what doesn't work in all kinds of situations where you look at virtual augmented reality training or support in the field. They do that with research up till monitoring the brain activities of people, so it's quite detailed and very high level, and they have very interesting facilities there at the university. Of course, I could well show you hundreds of other sheets about all the other partners, but in general, a lot of companies did many experiments either at the central field lab, typically supported by Avans Hogeschool and ROC Tilburg, the two schools, and of course a lot of experiments in the living labs, the pilot environments in industry. Yeah, about lessons learned and follow up, because I think Ulrich, probably around 5 minutes I have, something like that. Ah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, already, well, kind of a joke on our national soccer team, but this one is also quite nice, maybe familiar, but also a warning again about big data. What is shown here, it's maybe not that clear, but it really has been studied scientifically, is the number of Nobel Prizes in countries as a function of the population, and the chocolate consumption in certain countries. And yes, there is a nice correlation, and that is just to show that, of course, if you give just the data to big data specialists, they probably will find some correlations. But the question is if you really want to manipulate your operations and maintenance based on that, because that can result in accidents. This was not really happened by big data analysis, I think, but we had a similar pilot experience in the maritime environment, I must say. But what we have in Campione, and I think that's relevant for everyone, that you have, yeah, you have to have a mix of both these mathematicians, the experts in big data, but also people that know about the processes and the technologies. And if you mix that, I think you can come to a nice, successful outcome. Yeah, other conclusions, lessons learned. I would say the first one, of course, is known from Nike. Just do it, because what I've seen in the Netherlands, but maybe it's true in other countries as well, of course. Again, today I'm showing you a lot of PowerPoint sheets, and many people have PowerPoint sheets on smart industry. But of course, it's very important to actually start. Hey, of course, you can dream big, but you have to start small. But I also add, don't forget to start. And I think these field lab kind of environments really motivate people to work together and to actually start. And of course, when you start, you will run into all kinds of problems. But if you have an open innovation environment with many people and many experts, you will also be able to solve these problems and take the next step and really come to the application and business case. Already mentioned, it's nothing new, but it's getting a boost because of the smart industry possibilities. What is also nice, at least in the maintenance setting, I would say, is that you can achieve a win-win business case. And interesting enough, in Campione, we don't have a lot of contracts between asset owners and suppliers. We don't have a lot of contracts on IP, and nevertheless, a lot of pilots started right away and were successful. And I think the reason is that there is a win-win business case, because I think the asset owner wants just to have a better plant at lower cost, so better performance at lower cost. And if there is an innovating SME, for example, that has a technology that can support that, I think they will be able to find a win-win business case, which avoids very difficult discussions on IP and who owns the data and that kind of things. And the win-win business case is really accelerating, again, the cooperation. I already mentioned the schools, very important. And then about big data, well, I already gave some warnings, but there are also lots of big data flavors, I would say, with all kinds of solutions that we have tested in Campione, and they all can be successful or non-successful, varying from really black box approaches, so really big data driven, up to a more white box where you have a degradation model that you will feed with limited data, because there's a lot of modeling already behind it. What is also important is that we have this combination of this big data world and the technicians, and we have big data and models, I would say. And together with my colleague Henk Akkermans, I've been to various conferences, like the prognostic health monitoring conferences that are held regularly. And what we saw there is that there are either people that have a lot of models or either people that have a lot of data. But of course, you have to bring them together to make the difference. And I'll come back to this one again, but people, of course, make in the end the difference. And one of the examples is the schools, because we got them involved. It was really successful. They supported the project enormously. But in the beginning, it were really two or three teachers that personally were interested in this project, spent time actually beside the hours of the school, and helped us to build up the project. And now it's become very successful, and now regular education is coming to the field lab. But that goes, I think, for all levels of the project, that in the end, really the motivated people can make the difference. We make successes, and then this critical neighbor that I mentioned in the beginning becomes also enthusiastic and wants to join. About follow-up, rather quickly, what we see is that because of the success of Campione, increasingly people say, come to my living lab, so the pilot environment in the industry, so more or less skipping the central field lab. So we are thinking about how to increase again the activities at the central field lab. Well, of course, we started what is called the Smart Maintenance Skills Lab initiative. So really focusing on education of people based on the innovations from Campione. And we are very pleased with these stickers. It looks like a simple sticker, but we are now officially approved as an educational place for the intermediate level kind of education. We started Campione 2, which is really focusing also on something Ulrich mentioned, on trying to support SMEs, regional SMEs, with the knowledge we developed in the current Campione project. We're also looking at more risky innovations that cannot be directly implemented in industry, so needs really a central infrastructure. And for the, I would say, overhead that we have on the central infrastructure, we really are looking at public-private partnerships, so also government, even regional, to support us to keep that in the air. Again, a difference is made by people, and I will mention just a couple, but we have more than 600 people working in our projects. And as I said before, I gave an example of the school, but it goes for many people that can make a difference. That certainly is also for our relatively small team, because they are certainly not all full-time involved. Here see you Henk Akkermans, probably know him, my excellent colleague, also professor at the Tilburg University, Peter Hecker, which is the branch manager for us at FME. Our chairman, already mentioned him, Lex Besseling. Here you see some representatives of our members that are in the board of Worldclassmaintenance, because we would really like to keep listening and working for our members. My dear colleagues at the back office, and some of the project managers, and I already see that we have to add 2. But despite the fact that we are looking at all kinds of interesting technologies, hard technologies, the difference is made and will be made by people. I think that is my last sheet, so I hope I am within time, Ulrich, for maybe some questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. I mean, this was really a very great and insightful overview that you made here. Thank you very much for sharing this. And it really is superb in learning, definitely from what you have been doing over the last couple of years. I think the title of World Class is really fully fitting your activities. Let's put it. I would say the only consideration I have is the statistic in relation to the chocolate and the Nobel Prize winners. I think this only had to do with the fact that likely in Belgium we just have too much chocolate and maybe not enough Nobel Prize winners. With Switzerland coming on the upper right-hand corner there. Anyways, I think there's room for many questions, but let's start with a question from one of our attendees. And I'm not sure where Koskun is coming from, but he's asking whether your summer camps, your World-Class Maintenance Summer School, is open for the international attendees.
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely,
I
yeah.
that it might be in Dutch, but I'm not sure about that. So that was my next question.
Oh yeah. I'll check with the director Jan Braaksma for this year's edition. Because, well, of course, because of the corona, yeah, it's quite a difficult situation. We think, well, we only would like to have a physical summer school, because that really has added value for these people coming 1 week to a place. We typically make use of some military big facilities, so I think we can manage to comply with all the corona rules. But I will check, and I maybe can give the answer to you, Ulrich, that you can pass it to, yeah, if about this year's edition.
So what I'd suggest is once you have all of the details available, we'll put it on our website as well, and just promote it to the attendees
Yeah.
here that you can register for it. So no problem at all there. I think there's many of the use cases also that you mentioned which are very inspiring. One question that I have, you mentioned it, but maybe a little bit too briefly for me to fully acknowledge. The companies, how do they specifically participate? So do they have to pay an participation fee for it, or is everything specifically supported through the government? What's the typical model that you have today?
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, indeed. So the Campione project actually started before we officially had the new world-class maintenance organization, I would say, with this membership fees, etc. So we had a specific deal with the companies that you saw on the screen. Originally, we started with 26, and we also got subsidy from, indeed, the Dutch government. And also with the well, message that we have to find a new business model after this period. And we more or less finalizing this first phase of the Campione project. And so other companies already have joined, which can be done by applying for a world-class maintenance membership, starting from the silver one.
Okay, and so it's a membership-based model then in this case, and is it also free? Is that also admissible for non-Dutch companies to participate in? Is that
Yeah, certainly, yeah. Indeed. So for example, the process industry, we also have some Belgian participants here and there. So that's absolutely possible, and certainly, well, the fieldlab, of course, is quite close to the Belgian border.
Yep.
I think it's about 12 kilometers from Poppel, which is the first municipality you enter then.
Yeah.
So that's certainly open. And of course, as I explained, when you're a member, well, as from the silver membership, you can not only participate in Campione, but also all the other, well, 21 projects that we have running today.
I also have my colleague Daniel here. Daniel, do you have some questions? Because I know that you are working very closely with the manufacturing companies also here in Belgium. So what specific thoughts came up in your mind?
Yes, many thanks, Paul, for showing us how you are working in the Netherlands, and effectively very nice ideas arrive also at my site. And I'm thinking just related to my experience where I'm in a factory, showing what we can do for them, how we can help them from two perspectives. First of all, collecting data, analyzing data, and showing insights from another perspective where was not even possible before from the legacy systems, even from the very nice organized automation layer. But secondly, also proposing them to the new approach of the condition-based maintenance. Effectively is nothing new, but using big data, analyze, and proposing insights through the machine learning systems will be many times they can see new things, new relationships that was never seen before. How are cooperating the industrial partners, let's say customers, payer or not, how they are cooperating, how they are accepting to involve your sensors and or capture the data from the existing systems. The openness of the industry.
Oh yeah. Indeed, that's a good point. I must say, I also had a lot of questions on that when we started. People expected big discussions on that, on the openness of data. I think when we look at all kinds of pilots, it's going quite well, I would say, and that has to do with what I mentioned, the win-win business case between an asset owner and a service provider, for example, or technology provider. What of course is and will remain sensitive is if we want to share really data from one chemical company to another. That of course is a no-go, and it can be commercially very sensitive. Nevertheless, we have quite a lot of knowledge exchange between also big asset owners, but that is at a kind of a higher level. And I think at the higher level, that's also where the interesting knowledge is. An example of that is, for example, Fujifilm and Tata Steel. So I explained about the rollers. Well, Tata Steel, they also have rollers, of course, different type of materials and thickness of the sheets, etc. But the basic idea, how to analyze the scalar data, etc., knowledge on that can be shared. But of course, production data of Fuji will never go to Tata or the other way around. But I also don't think it's necessary and probably also not interesting for Fuji to know the production data of Tata. So at the knowledge level, I would say the exchange is quite good. At pilot level within a chemical plant, for example, the cooperation is also going quite well. And of course, when you want to share data across companies, then of course you have to be careful there.
Okay, thank you. And I can have another question related to the reaction. Normally, the goal for condition-based maintenance is starting from the data you are collecting and analyzing to modify or to react at the maintenance strategy. Are the company ready to adopt the recommendation coming from the platform? Let's say to postpone the preventive maintenance and to wait a signal?
Also a very good point, Daniel. That's and then I realized that probably in our field lab projects like Campione, we probably have the front runners on the condition-based maintenance. So when I look at the successful ones, like Cytec that I mentioned, and also Fuji, when we started, they more or less already had a kind of a strategy and vision that they would like to change towards more predictive maintenance. Cytec very strongly because of the competitiveness, which I explained in the beginning, where we have to compete with, and Fuji, because I think they were also always on the top benchmark in maintenance, and probably still are, but they also had, of course, a very strong position in the photographic industry in the past, which is now completely digitized. And of course, this market change resulted also in the requirement to change their maintenance strategy, I would say. But from a strategic point of view, these front runners were already preparing for the type of innovations that we have developed in Campione. So in that sense, when I look at their successes, it's probably due to, on one hand, the top support from the management because it connects to their strategy. And on the other hand, we have very motivated and qualified people at the work floor, so working in Campione. And when that comes together, you get a quick adoption. But I can imagine that if management doesn't have the vision and strategy already towards more condition-based maintenance, that it's becoming more problematic, probably.
Okay, thank you. Another short question. You show somewhere in your presentation a very nice dashboards. For this, you are using your own platform?
Oh, that's No, that's developed by the project members themselves. And it's also a relevant topic I think you addressed there. Because of course you could develop all types of standalone solutions with their own dashboards, and but then certainly for a big asset owner there is the danger, I would say, that there are all types of point-to-point solutions requiring their own dashboard or own infrastructure that you have to use in parallel. So there are also a lot of companies that from the beginning they try to connect with their existing dashboards, for example, from the production facilities, trying to connect and integrate that with their regular working environment. Okay. And that's what we have seen so far.
Many thanks. A lot of other questions, right? But we'll not use them all the time today. Many thanks, Paul.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yes. And also from my end, Paul, thank you very much for sharing and for being this open. As I said before, it was quite unfortunate that we basically couldn't organize yet our new 3if conference, because this would have been a perfect opportunity for us to meet up again. But yes, unfortunately, I'd say due to the current situation, we'll have to wait for that for a couple of months.
Yeah.
You're definitely invited to join us in another activity, hopefully in the not too far away future. So with this, I'd say I'm also looking forward in maybe see you in at another point in time, maybe at your activities in the Netherlands, in the summer camp, in the training facilities, but maybe also in just sharing some of the experiences that we have from our field labs, and just maybe seeing if we can even join the forces that we have there. And so let me share quickly, because you did so also very elaborately in showcasing how you got the support from the ministers with the field lab. Let me do that a little bit of the same here, and just show you a couple of images from the conference that we had last year, where we had also the opportunity to meet up with our ministers, and also got the support there, and where we, as you can see, showed here also some of the use cases that we have been deploying. So gives a bit of an impression that it seems that we are not too far away from each other, but we can still learn quite a lot from each other. So with this, I would say again, thank you very much for your early morning participation, and I'm very looking forward to seeing you again not too far away from here, face to face then.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a nice and safe morning.
Yeah, same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.